Sometimes you need to take a step back and some time out to fully appreciate something. This doesn't work all the time. That drawing your kid put on the fridge is never going to turn into a Picasso, no matter how hard you convince yourself, but some pieces of art do better with a fresh perspective. Nowhere is this more true than in the medium of film. Countless movies we consider classics these days were utterly slated when they were first released. Some opinions change quickly, whilst others took decades to be reversed. No matter how long it took, these movies are all held in a much higher regard now than they were during their initial release period. It just goes to show you shouldn't always trust someone's opinions, even if they come from a very well-respected YouTube channel. Hang on a minute. I'm Tilly from What Culture Horror, and these are 10 horror movies everyone loves now, but hated before. Number 10. Anaconda. In 1997, Anaconda attempted to do for snakes what Jaws did for sharks. Except it ended up doing what Jaws 4 did for cinema. Starring Jennifer Lopez and Ice Cube among others, the story follows a documentary crew as they attempt to survive the jungles of the Amazon whilst being hunted by the enormous snake. Whilst the film has plenty of action and a unique premise, critics were not best pleased with it at the time. The feature was scrutinised for having underdeveloped characters and a predictable plot, despite the time and effort that had clearly gone into securing the big names for the poster. What was praised about the movie at the time has basically become the reason why people like it today. Creature feature fans may enjoy its brazen silliness, said Rotten Tomatoes, and they were absolutely spot on. The film is utterly ridiculous in the best possible way and has become a cult classic as a result. People know now not to expect anything great from Anaconda, and it's amassed plenty of fans who enjoy it for what it is. A schlocky, campy mess. Number 9. The Fog. Visionary director John Carpenter's films have taken their fair share of dragging from critics over the years, as we'll see with one of his most famous releases a little later on. For now, let's focus on his 1980 release The Fog, a film about... fog. A thick haze engulfs a small coastal town, creating all sorts of perilous problems for its inhabitants. How will the postman know where to go? Oh, and there's also the ghosts of dead sailors out for revenge hiding in the mist. But let's not forget the postman, guys. The film was given some praise for its visuals and the performance of several of its cast, but nobody thought this was amazing on the whole. Over time, though, the fog of criticism in the minds of viewers seems to have rolled away. The Fog is now widely regarded as a classic and often gets included in lists of the best horror pictures ever made. It even got a remake in 2005, although that was slated by critics even harder than the first one. Maybe that'll get reappraised in years to come. Unlikely, but possible. Number 8. Eyes Without a Face. From the year 1960 comes Eyes Without a Face, a tale of horror, intrigue, and plastic surgery. A doctor goes to extreme lengths to perform a face transplant on his disfigured daughter, becoming more and more unhinged as his attempts fail. At least he never tried to graft John Travolta or Nicolas Cage onto her. This French-Italian joint effort was pretty groundbreaking for the time, and a battle over censorship ensued in its wake. It was even edited and renamed for its release in the US. Nobody quite knew what to make of Eyes Without a Face when it first came out. Response to the movie ranged from disgust to confusion to awe, and it was only in the years after it came out that it began to be fully admired. A 1986 re-release helped change the critical opinion of this movie, as did a subsequent American re-release in 2003. Not only is the feature now considered an all-timer, but its influence on the genre has been outlined by a number of critics, authors, and fans alike. Number 7. Eraserhead. Keeping things weird and black and white for now, let's pay a little visit to David Lynch. Before he was taking us all on a trip to Twin Peaks or updating us on the weather on his blog, Lynch was making his first ever feature film in 1977. Jack Nance's character turns up, finds a weird baby thing, and then stuff sort of happens to him. Is that right? Why are we even bothering to decode a Lynch production? We'd have more luck asking a chicken what the time is. Since the world wasn't yet used to the director's unique style of filmmaking, Eraserhead came up against some pretty strong resistance in its early days. Variety called it a sickeningly bad taste exercise, which is hardly the feedback you want from your debut feature. Over time though, the world has become more accepting towards surrealist ideas. By this point, Eraserhead's practically a sacred text, the genesis of one of cinema's most fascinating figures. Variety must feel a bit shit. Number 6. Jennifer's Body. Megan Fox was an easy target in the late noughties, thanks in no small part to her appearances in the corny explosion fests that were the Michael Bay Transformer movies. Fox was labelled by many as someone who was there purely for her pretty face and attractive body, and her appearance in 2009's Jennifer's Body initially seemed to confirm that. Starring as the titular character, Fox plays a teenager possessed by a demonic spirit who goes on a murderous rampage across town. It's up to best friend Amanda Seyfried to save the day. The film was given a very shallow appraisal at first, with renowned critic Roger Ebert calling it Twilight for boys. In hindsight though, Jennifer's Body is about more than just man-eating cheerleaders. The film has undergone somewhat of a feminist reanalysis in recent years, with critics championing the story of a young woman enacting revenge on manipulative men. Writer Diablo Cody has said that the film's original reputation came from the fact that it was heavily marketed towards a male audience. A film with a sexy woman in it being pushed to boys? In 2009? Surely not. Number 5. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Some of the biggest movies of 1974 were Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, and The Longest Yard. You can see why the public weren't quite ready for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. While it's widely considered to be one of the greats now, Leatherface's original big screen outing did not go over well with contemporary audiences. And let's just say their complaints were not about the lighting design. Objections were levelled at the excessive gore of the picture, the great irony being that you can barely see any actual splattering during the runtime. You don't need me to tell you how opinion on this movie has changed over the years. You only need to see how many sequels and spin-off TCM has received to realise just how important Tobe Hooper's original film was to the genre, and how beloved the characters still are to this very day. Of course, in another case of great irony, the controversy surrounding the film is one of the big reasons why it's so famous. Maybe all the negative criticism was just a marketing ploy. Probably not. Number 4. Halloween. Hi, John Carpenter. Good to see you again, buddy. 2 years before critics took a big old dump all over the fog, the Carpster put out the first in what would become a baker's dozen of scary movies. That's 13 for those not in the bread-making trade. From the moment young Michael Myers put on that mask and stabbed his naked sister to death, horror cinema was changed forever. The original Halloween is considered one of the greatest horrors ever made, as well as one of the first to popularise the slasher genre that has become massive in the decades following. Did people see it this way at the time? Did they hell? Critics went to town on Carpenter's efforts, labelling it everything from empty and morbid to transparent and laborious. Seriously, whose dog did John run over? Carpenter would get his revenge though, as the film is now considered horror royalty. It sits on 96% at Rotten Tomatoes, and critics have praised everything from its acting, to its scares, to its clever cinematography. Number 3. Psycho. As he's now been put on a pedestal that few others could ever hope to match, it's hard to think of anyone ever saying anything bad about Alfred Hitchcock's filmmaking. Nevertheless, even the master of suspense wasn't immune to being taken to the cleaners by the press every now and then. In 1960, Hitchcock unleashed the strange and subversive Psycho. Woman steals money, stays in a motel, gets done by a bloke in a dress, bish bash bosh, the rest is history. The shower scene alone is enough to get any cinephile's blood pumping, but there were people at the time who wished Marion Crane had driven right on past the Bates Motel. They had a go at everything. The acting, the plot, the production values. One critic even walked out and resigned her post after a press screening, which is absolutely mental. It is redundant to talk about how beloved Psycho is these days because everybody knows it's widely regarded as a masterpiece. Nobody has walked out of a screening of this in a long time. Number 2. The Shining. 20 years after Psycho got less than complimentary reviews from film journalists, another iconic psychological thriller suffered the same fate. Much like with Psycho, we don't really need to waste time in explaining The Shining to you. If you haven't seen it, first of all, shame on you, and second of all, you've definitely seen enough of it parodied elsewhere to recognise the key points. Yes, we're looking at you, The Simpsons. The Torrance family's holiday from hell is now firmly embedded in our cultural lexicon, but that's not the way some people saw it upon its release. Reviewers claimed that the film was bloated and inconsequential, that so much of what happened across its runtime was irrelevant and had no bearing on the story. Ironically, that's what a lot of people love about this feature, how random and unconnected so much of the goings-on are. One publication got really upset at how badly Stanley Kubrick treated the source material, saying that he had conspired to destroy all that was terrifying about Stephen King's bestseller. Which publication was that, you ask? Variety. Number 1. The Thing. Seriously, John Carpenter, what the hell did you do? 3 films on the same list, honestly. They hated The Fog, they hated Halloween, and critics even found something to complain about in Carpenter's 1982 sci-fi spookfest The Thing. Starring Kurt Russell as the leader of an Arctic research base, The Thing puts the inhabitants of the facility up against a shape-shifting alien entity hell-bent on taking every single one of them down. It's gripping, it's clever, it is beautifully made. But that still wasn't enough. The overwhelming wave of hate that The Thing received is quite startling to read about. It was called boring, derivative, underdeveloped, too reliant on special effects, and just about every other nasty name under the sun. It's a bit like looking through my comments section, to be honest. Carpenter took the reviews very badly and has spoken in hindsight about how differently his career would have gone if it had taken a big hit. Don't cry, John, because then we'll all cry. Thankfully, Carpenter has plenty of $100 bills to dry his eyes with these days, because the thing is now considered a must-watch. His body of work is a fantastic example of persevering with what you love, even if everyone around you doesn't understand its brilliance. And that's our list. What other horror movies were treated kindly by the sands of time? Let us know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe and swing on by our channel again if you want to catch more creepy content. I've been Tilly and this has been What Culture. Thank you for watching and make sure to look after yourselves. Till next time.